to get inspiration from them and actually to learn from them, from their collective experiences. And I've had the opportunity to watch many feeds. In particular, I was speaking to Mr. C.J. Abernathy yesterday regarding how I particularly liked his live feeds when he was driving in his truck and sharing his thoughts with us on the ride, because that's one of my ways of just reflection and in times where I need peace. I go in my car, go for a drive, listen to music. So I would always identify with Mr. Abernathy's his live posts. So I am very privileged to have spent some time with Mr. C.J. Abernathy over the past few days. He's here all the way from South Dakota. He's going to join us today and speak on a topic that he knows very well and has a great amount of insight and information, paternity fraud. So please welcome and share this video of Mr. C.J. Abernathy. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Carlos Rivera. My name is C.J. Abernathy. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Disgusted Dads. I have been involved in the family law court system virtually my entire life. However, where it impacted my adulthood was after the birth of my first daughter, Rory. She's now 7 years old, and on today, of all days, the day that I'm speaking in front of the Senate and the Congress here in D.C., I have not had any contact with my daughter for now 1,200 days due to what we in the family law community call paternity fraud. For those that don't know what paternity fraud is, this is the misattributed paternity of a child on their birth certificate, meaning that either the incorrect father or no father at all has been put on the birth certificate. The Title IV funding that everybody here talks so adamantly about taking and abolishing directly stems from the establishment of paternity in every single state. Every single United States citizen has a birth certificate. Now, let's imagine, if you will, today that 100,000 children were born. In order for the state to collect their title funding, they have to have 90% paternity establishment on all birth certificates. So that means that they only need 90,000 fathers listed on a birth certificate for them to receive 100% of their title funding. So what that means is that there are 10,000 children out there that do not have either the correct father or a father put on their birth certificate at all. This is why when a parent goes to collect child support, you are told that you must go to the child support office and you must have a name on the birth certificate. This is why they stress this so much. Well, let me ask you a question to everybody watching. What happens when that birth certificate is done fraudulently? What happens to the children who have misattributed paternity on their birth certificate, and what rights are they deprived when that is done maliciously? In 2015, I was lucky enough to start working with people in Washington State to do the Brandon Jones Act. This was to stop paternity fraud. We met all types of combative groups that did not want to criminalize malicious paternity fraud. We're not talking about somebody who just doesn't know who the father is, or somebody who doesn't like the father so they don't name them. We're talking about somebody who maliciously and knowingly and willingly put the wrong person on a birth certificate and then uses the court to defraud not only the child, the father, but the court itself. So when the court is defrauded, what do you do then? What do you do when you approach a court of equity that establishes their right to rule over you through admiralty law, through legal notification of a visual flag, that you have no constitutional rights. This movement fails to address how our courts do not care about our constitutional rights. Yes, they violate our constitutional rights, but they are giving you legal notice when they show you and display openly a flag with a gold fringe. This means admiralty law. That does not mean you have constitutional rights at all. So, now what? You sit there and you go to this court of equity. Well, they establish time frames. In order for you to have parental rights as a non-married biological father, you have to go to the court of equity within 2 years, and in some states 4, in order to establish your rights. Let me ask you a question. I was just at the Supreme Court. On the Supreme Court, it says equal justice under law. Explain to me and explain to America, but most importantly, explain to our children, politicians, how it is that a father has to go to a court of equity and petition their rights from the government in order for them to have a parental relationship. And if they make said deadline, if they do not make said deadline, the government does not acknowledge their rights and does not protect their rights. Now, this building right here is federal law. Under federal law, all 50 states must allow for the paternity establishment of a child until a child turns 18, where it is in question, where there is a reason beyond a reasonable doubt that the paternity needs to be established correctly. Why is it that states can willingly violate this federal law, but the states can get their funding to take away children? Explain that one to our children. It's not this disgusted dad standing in front of this building with these fine people. It's your job to explain to us and our families how you got away with it. Now, some of you politicians behind me might be thinking I had nothing to do with this. I wasn't the legislator that voted this in. I believe that moms and dads are just as important. But I just went up the hill here where they're having a health care rally. And I spoke to Senator Harris in a brief moment of time, and I said, ma'am, will you please explain Title IV funding to the people? And her aide said, we don't have time for that. I'm sorry. I realize that this is a very sad subject. However, when you're talking about rights for people and you're sitting there giving a speech in front of people, Ms. Harris, why are you going to sit there and pretend that you're not a part of the problem that's kidnapping our children? That you're not a part of the funding that gets approved to kidnap our children? So you can sit there with your microphone and you can rally your troops, but we in this movement know you and the rest of the politicians in that building are a fraud, and that you condone fraud. Not only do you condone fraud, but you all work through the state bar associations. In Washington State, the Family Law State Bar Association said, and I quote, people do commit fraud, people do lie, people lie all the time in family law. But that was their argument for not supporting the Brandon Jones Act. Explain that one to our children, to our families, and to this movement. So now that I've addressed the Congress and the Senate, a long time ago, I'd addressed the President of these United States, Barack Obama. Before he left office, at the end of the Brandon Jones Act, I said, sir, how do we step up to the plate if the plate is being taken away from us? I ask President now, Donald J. Trump, how do you make America great again if your courts are unconstitutional? Yeah. Sir, I'm here now. I'm asking you, as a citizen that voted for you, please make family law constitutional. That is your job. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I appreciate the passion that goes behind these testimonials, and in CJ's case, in the case of many others, the content that goes behind it.